This is the new Google Pixel 7a, and it is a very interesting device because it really abandons the 7a, the A lineup philosophy of being a sub $400 phone, and now it is a full-fledged $500 phone, which makes it a little bit less of a easy recommendation as the A line used to be. I mean, I was upset when the Pixel 6a got a price bump, but this is just a price bump after a price bump, which is quite upsetting. But there are definitely some additions to soften the blow of that price bump. So let's go ahead, open up the Pixel 7a and take a look at it. So I have the C color, and just opening up these pull tabs. Let's go ahead, flip the box over. So this is the 128 gig C Pixel 7a. Let's go ahead. There's 4 colors, black, white, C, and there is an exclusive coral color, which is like a peachy, orangey color. And this is the C, and that is actually, that is very blue. I expected it to be a little bit lighter. I don't know what I expected, but this is definitely a very noticeable color. It looks quite interesting. Let me go ahead and put this off to the side and let me show you guys what else comes in the box. There's obviously the USB-C to C cable, USB-A to C adapter, which I'm surprised Google still gives. I think I say that every time I unbox a Pixel phone now, but that is true. You have your SIM eject tool. You've got 2 pamphlets, a Google Get Help, and a safety, warranty, and regulatory guide. So pretty sparse unboxing, as is the case with most phones these days. Let's go ahead and put this off to the side and take a look at the phone itself. And go ahead, it is definitely quite heavy. It feels way heavier than the Pixel 6a, and it's thicker too. Like you can tell, this phone is definitely on the thicker side when compared to the Google Pixel 6a. I wasn't a fan of how chunky this one was in the first place. Like, it wasn't chunky, but I was like, okay, this is kind of the max of what it is. So this is quite a hefty device. Let's go ahead and let me show you the front. So it does show you guys what these buttons do. So power button right here, volume up, volume down right here, and then right here is the SIM card tool, the charger right down here. And of course, we've got the in-display fingerprint scanner. So let me go ahead and lift off the plastic, and let's go ahead and power this on. So from the front, from what I'm seeing, even with the display turned off, it seems like the bezels are actually a little bit thicker than the Pixel 6a. Let me go ahead and put this side by side. Let me go ahead and unlock this phone so you guys can get a better look at it. Definitely seems like the top is just a bit thicker. Actually, no. Now that it's on, it seems similar, but it definitely feels like it's significant. I don't know. Maybe it's just having the black frame on this phone makes it a little bit less apparent, but yeah, that's the bezel. So let me go ahead and just give a physical overview of the phone. So you do have the much thicker camera bar now. It does seem to be made of metal. Yep, I mean, feels a little bit different than this metal, but it does seem to be at least a metallic finish. Definitely not as significant as the 7 Pro's bump, nor as jutting. So you guys can see like the depth of it is way less. I don't know if this camera angle is picking it up or not, but other than that, it looks pretty good. The feel is pretty solid. I am not sure if the frame is made from metal or from plastic, but let me go ahead, set this phone up, and I'll come back to you guys and give you guys my initial impressions after using it for a little bit. Alright, so I've been using the Google Pixel 7a for the last day or so, usually way longer than I do my initial impressions. I just ended up really wanting to take my time with this phone. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just because I was making a initial impressions video after a long time, but I really took my time with this one, and I set the phone up and I got a good amount of usage under it, like 5+ hours of screen on time in the last day. It has been a really interesting experience. And let me start off with the build quality and what you get with the phone. So you guys did see the design. It has the it has a plastic back, a aluminum frame, and it's also got the very familiar pixel camera visor. The front is a flat glass. It does have curved edges, but flat display as well. And it's only got Gorilla Glass 3. It doesn't have the newer versions of Gorilla Glass. So durability might be a cause for concern with drops. I don't know. I think that honestly, most of these glasses do end up just shattering if they fall in the right way. So it is something to note though. You know, I really do wish that they would have spent the extra tiny bit with the newest glass, even if it is just like 5% better. I don't imagine that's something that's a crazy amount of money, especially given how expensive this phone's gotten anyways. Another thing I've absolutely loved about this phone is this color. It's a very nice light blue. It's unmistakably blue, but it doesn't shout it. It looks very... It's got this whitish blue, and I really love it. And I'm honestly happy that they've ditched the dual color back. So as you guys can see, you know, it did have the camera visor and then it had dual color backs. I was not a fan of this. You know, it didn't really look good. I actually more so really like the Pixel 7's approach of having the same color glass, but having a different color visor and frame that makes the screen look the back look... It looks better to me. The contrast just makes a lot more sense, and it looks a lot more just professional to me. It looks a lot cleaner. The software, let's talk about that. It's very familiar, very at home. I really like it. I think that Google's take at their own Android operating system, of course, is the best, but it's clean, it looks great, it's very simple to understand, there's no crazy things going on, and I am really glad that Google has not messed with this part of their phone for years. And even though it doesn't feel like there's big jumps, I think it is well worth it because it just feels and operates without, you know, concern. It's great. Another great thing about the phone has been the display. So the display did get a bump. It's now a 90 hertz refresh rate display. It's got the same resolution as the 6A did, but it's now got 90 hertz, which is kind of one of the biggest upgrades, I would say, over the last generation. Otherwise, display-wise, it's very similar, same size. It feels the same. I think it might be a lightly wider. I don't know if it's the display that's wider or the phone itself, the sides of the phone that just jut out a little bit more, but it feels definitely more it feels more significant in the hand. And I say significant in a positive way. It's not the worst. It really does feel nice to have a slightly heavier phone, especially of this size in your hand. It feels a little bit more comfortable and doesn't feel like it's just gonna fly out of my hand. So you know, weight is a kind of weird thing where sometimes it's great to have a little bit more weight, but sometimes a little bit too much. It's a very thin line to walk. So I found that this phone is very comfortable to hold and use. One thing I did notice about the display, which is a little bit crazy to me, is that the 90 hertz refresh rate was not enabled, you know, for out of the box, which is not unusual. You know, many phones don't really have it out of the box. But what was crazy was that it wasn't even a something mentioned during the setup process. Google has this big page, you know, at the beginning when you're setting your phone up, where you can set up things like the listening modes. You can set up email addresses. You've got, you know, a bunch of like a checklist sort of thing where you can set a bunch of things up. But it never had the display option for the refresh rate. I didn't find it until I went digging through the settings. And that's upsetting because, you know, I think a lot of people who end up buying the 7A in particular, I'm sorry, they're not gonna enable that. They're just not gonna realize that that's a setting. I really hope that Google can fix this. It's super simple, right? Other than that, I did watch some videos and content on YouTube. The speakers sound great. The display looks great. The camera circle, you know, the camera hole cutout, it's not too bad. It blends in as decently well as any other camera cutout does. I haven't really had a chance to test the camera yet, which I am a little bit upset about, but really, I think that the camera really deserves a little bit more patience and time, and I could take 4 photos and be like, hey, it looks great, or hey, it looks bad. Like, I don't think that'll give me a lot of perception. That's why I haven't gone into the camera yet. That is something I will look at in a future video, a little bit more in depth. Finishing it off, let me just talk about some of the other stuff. So it does have, for the first time on an A phone, wireless charging, which I thought was the weirdest thing they skimped out on, right? It was like, it's so cheap to integrate that. And the fact that Google never had wireless charging on their A lineup was just baffling to me, because this was like one of the only phones I would consistently buy every year that didn't have it. That's something I really am glad to see on this. It does have, it doesn't have fast wireless charging. It only has 7.5 watts, and it only has 18 watts of fast wired charging too, which is a little bit of a, you know, They could have made it faster, definitely on the wireless charging side. The wired charging, it's a 2-watt difference between the Pixel 7 and this, so not the biggest deal, but at the wireless charging is like, come on, you're still holding out on something here. It's a weird compromise. It sits very weirdly, and just imagine this is a Pixel 7, by the way, not A7 Pro, because this is what the new lineup looks like, and it slots between these two phones. So the 7A sits at $500. The 6A now sells at $350, which is an incredible price, quite frankly. The Pixel 7 was a $600 phone, so this sits right in the middle. $600, $500, $350. In fact, a little bit over the middle of the lineup, and I have to say, it's a very weird choice to make. Like, there's not a lot of incentive to jump up to the Pixel 7 because it's very similar, but there's a lot of incentive to jump down to the 6A because design-wise, it's quite familiar. Display-wise, it's the same size. You do get 90 hertz. And there's not a lot else to differentiate it. Both of them have IP67. This has wireless charging. This doesn't have wireless charging, whereas this one does. And I am right now struggling to figure out if I can recommend this phone or not, given the weird price it sits at. In its own, in a vacuum, without anything else, this is a great phone. I would recommend it, hands down, no doubt. However, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists with competitors, and competitors from its own family. So that's where the question becomes a little bit more difficult, and that's something I will be working on figuring out in the upcoming weeks and making a little bit more of a decision. So the 7 is a great phone, but I think that if you're looking at buying this, you should take a very, very hard look at the Pixel 6A, and maybe even try to look at a Pixel 7 if it's discounted somewhere, because it's been out for 6 months or so now. You're easily going to be able to find a cheaper version, and this is pretty much a 7 with a few things left out. So if you can find a 7 for the same price as this, jump on that. Otherwise, when it comes to these two phones, it's going to be a little bit more of an interesting toss-up to see which one makes more sense.